There is a street in Xi'an that you would walk down without noticing anything unusual. It runs straight, perpendicular to the street beside it, perpendicular to the street after that. The whole city runs this way, a grid even, almost perfect, spreading beneath 13 million people, like the foundation of something far older than anything standing on top of it. That grid was not drawn in the 20th century, not the 19th, not the 18th. It was drawn in 634 AD, and the city was drawn to serve. That city no longer exists. It collapsed in 907. It was erased from the map of world power. The dynasty that built it ended in an assassination after 289 years. But the grid is still there, because that city, at its peak around 700 AD, was the only place on Earth that everyone needed to reach. Not because it was beautiful, not because it was wealthy, because it was the center of everything happening in the world, and everyone knew it. In 700 AD, 1 million people lived inside this city. No other city on Earth came close. This is Chang'an. This is the Tang Dynasty. And this is the story of how one empire turned its capital into the center of the world, and why its collapse still echoes 1,000 years later. Chang'an in the mid-7th century covers 84 square kilometers. Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, the second city of the ancient world, covers roughly 14 square kilometers. There is no comparison. Chang'an holds approximately 1 million people. Among them, at various periods, are 10,000 foreign families registered as permanent residents. The West Market alone contains over 200 categories of goods, from merchants representing more than 300 states and regions. Persian glass, Indian spices, Byzantine gold coins, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cotton from India, Central Asian horses, the blood-sweating Fergana horses that Tang emperors prize so highly they send military expeditions 3,000 kilometers west to acquire them, because the Tang cavalry that keeps the empire intact runs on those animals, and there is no substitute. The Tang Dynasty's territory at its peak exceeds 5 million square kilometers. It stretches from the Korean Peninsula in the east to the Aral Sea in the west. The Silk Road, not a road, a network of overland and maritime routes connecting China to Persia, Arabia, India, Byzantium, and East Africa simultaneously, ends in Chang'an. Everything flows toward it. And from this environment, in this city, in roughly the same generation, emerge Bai and Du Fu, two poets who produce between them approximately 2,500 poems that define Chinese literary culture for every dynasty that follows. Bai's 1,000 poems, Du Fu's 1,500. They are still memorized today, in China, in Taiwan, in Vietnam, Korea, and Japan. 1,300 years later, still memorized. How does a dynasty build this in 3 generations? It starts with a coup, a fratricide, and a man who forces his own father off the throne, and then becomes the template for Chinese good governance for the next 1,000 years. The Sui dynasty, which precedes the Tang, destroys itself. It builds the Grand Canal, roughly 2,700 kilometers, connecting North and South China, a genuine engineering achievement, and it exhausts its population doing it. It then launches 3 catastrophic military invasions of the Korean kingdom of Goguryeo, all of which fail, all of which cost lives and resources the dynasty cannot replace. By 617 AD, the Sui is a shell, and everyone in the imperial administration knows it. The official history of what happens next is a carefully constructed LIE. It records that Li Yuan, a Sui military governor of aristocratic lineage, related to the Sui imperial family by marriage, reluctantly rises against the dynasty after receiving divine signs and popular pressure. The reality, reconstructed by modern historians from contemporaneous sources, is different. Li Yuan's second son, Li Shimin, engineers the rebellion. He forges documents. He manipulates the conditions around his father until Li Yuan has no credible option but to act. The Sui collapses in 618 AD. Li Yuan becomes Emperor Gaozu, the founder of the Tang Dynasty. Li Shimin then does what his position requires. In June of 626 AD, at the Xuanwu Gate of the Imperial Palace in Chang'an, he ambushes his elder brother Li Jiancheng, the crown prince, the legitimate heir, and kills him. He kills his younger brother Li Yuanji. He forces his father to abdicate. He becomes Emperor Taizong. The Xuanwu Gate incident is the founding trauma of the Tang Dynasty. It is also the moment the dynasty discovers its own shape, power taken by force, legitimized by performance. Because what Taizong does next is build the template for Chinese good governance that every subsequent emperor in Chinese history will be measured against. He reduces taxes, he reforms the legal code, he creates a merit-based civil examination system. The idea that government officials should be chosen by what they know rather than who they were born to. He appoints an official whose sole function is to contradict him, to tell him when he is wrong. Because Taizong understands that an emperor surrounded only by agreement is an emperor already failing. His reign, the Zhenguan period, 626 to 649 AD, becomes the gold standard. Every emperor who follows is asked, how does this compare to Taizong? He defeats the Eastern Turkic Khagamate in 630 AD, and the steppe peoples give him a title. Not a Chinese title, a Turkic one, Heavenly Khan, a Chinese emperor receiving a title from nomadic peoples beyond the frontier, accepting it, wearing it alongside his Chinese imperial titles. That is not a contradiction under Taizong. That is the definition of what the Tang is going to be. In 655 AD, Emperor Gaozong, Taizong's son, takes as his empress a woman named Wu Zhao, who had been a concubine of his father. She's approximately 31 years old. She is, at this moment, simply the empress. Over the following decades, as Gaozong's health declines, Wu Zhao accumulates power. First, as the emperor's political partner, she is literate, administratively skilled, and present at the decisions that matter. Then, after Gaozong's death in 683 AD, as regent for her sons. Then, in 690 AD, she stops. She declares herself emperor in her own name. She calls her dynasty the Zhou. She is the only woman in 3,000 years of Chinese imperial history to do this. Wu Zetian, the name history gives her, rules until 705 AD, when a court conspiracy forces her abdication at approximately 80 years old. In those 15 years of sole rule, she expands the civil examination system, opening it to candidates regardless of aristocratic background, creating a class of scholar officials whose loyalty is to the state rather than to noble families. She commissions Buddhist construction projects. She defeats Tibetan and Turkic incursions on the western frontier. She executes opponents with a thoroughness that her male predecessors also employed, and for which they are not judged the way she is. Every primary source about Wu Zetian is written by men who opposed her. The historical record is almost entirely hostile. Modern historians, working from administrative records and archaeological evidence that the official histories cannot retroactively distort, find a ruler of considerable administrative skill, whose policies were often more effective than the hostile sources acknowledge. This is not a rehabilitation. She ordered executions. She destroyed families. She was capable of the full range of imperial brutality. She did what Tang Dynasty rulers do to stay in power, and to exercise it effectively. She is judged more harshly for it than any man who did the same things. The Tang Dynasty is restored after her abdication. Her Zhou is erased from the official dynastic sequence, as though those 15 years didn't happen. Her name survives anyway. It always does. What does the Silk Road actually bring to Chang'an? Not primarily silk. Silk is what China exports. What flows into Chang'an is more interesting than anything it sends out. From Persia and the Arab world, Chang'an receives music. The pipa, the instrument being played above the West Market, arrives from Persia via Central Asia. The musical scales, the performance traditions, the entire sonic architecture of Central Asian music transforms Tang court entertainment. The Sogdian whirl, a spinning dance performed by Central Asian performers, becomes fashionable among the Tang elite. Emperor Xuanzong, who will later flee the An Lushan rebellion, is himself a musician and composer who creates an imperial music academy with 30,000 enrolled performers. His court composes pieces that are neither Chinese, nor Persian, nor Central Asian, but something that has never existed before. A fusion of traditions that could only be assembled in a city where all of them coexist simultaneously. From India comes something with longer consequences. Indian astronomers serve at the Tang court, calculating calendars with a precision that Chinese astronomical traditions alone couldn't produce. Mathematical concepts, including numerical frameworks that will eventually become foundational to the system modern mathematics runs on, flow through the Silk Road network into Tang China. And Buddhism, which had arrived in China centuries earlier, reaches its organizational and artistic peak under the Tang. In 645 AD, a monk named Xuanzang walks into Chang'an. He has been gone for 17 years. He has traveled approximately 25,000 kilometers across Central Asia into India, collecting Buddhist texts that don't exist in Chinese. Emperor Taizong receives him personally. He funds the translation project that Xuanzang then spends the rest of his life completing. The texts Xuanzang brings back remain foundational to East Asian Buddhism. His journey becomes the basis of the novel Journey to the West, one of the canonical works of Chinese literature. He walks into the city carrying texts. He walks out of history carrying a story that lasts forever. From the steppe come horses and pressure and something harder to name. The Fergana horses the Tang cavalry depends on. Military tactics developed by peoples who have been fighting on horseback for centuries, and the constant generative friction of nomadic peoples who simultaneously threaten and invigorate the dynasty. Peoples the Tang absorbs, employs, incorporates, marries into, and is changed by. Tang cosmopolitanism is partly steppe cosmopolitanism. The ability to absorb what the steppe sends and be remade by it is not incidental to Tang power. It is constitutive of it. What does the Silk Road bring China? Not wealth. It brings China the world. For 150 years, Chang'an metabolizes everything it receives and produces something that has never existed before. Then, a general named An Lushan dances for the empress, gets himself adopted as her honorary son, and raises 200,000 soldiers against the dynasty that made him. An Lushan is the Tang Dynasty made flesh. His father is Sogdian, his mother is Turkic. He speaks multiple languages. He rises through the Tang military system on the northwestern frontier, exactly the cosmopolitan, porous military zone where non-Chinese commanders are common, and where the dynasty's openness to talent, regardless of origin, produces its most capable officers. He is received at the court of Emperor Xuanzong. He dances for Yang Guifei, the emperor's favorite concubine. He is adopted, ceremonially, as her honorary son. He commands the northeastern frontier armies, 3 of them, more troops than any other commander in the empire, because Xuanzong trusts him. In December of 755 AD, An Lushan declares rebellion. He has 200,000 soldiers. Luoyang, the eastern capital, 300 kilometers from Chang'an, falls within weeks. Chang'an falls in 756 AD. Emperor Xuanzong flees west towards Sichuan, the mountain province where the empire can be defended and rebuilt. He takes his court with him. He takes Yang Guifei. At the Mawei postal station in Shaanxi province, on a road that was never meant to carry an emperor in flight, the imperial soldiers stop walking. They have been marching away from a capital that fell because someone trusted, and they have decided who is responsible. They want Yang Guifei. They blame her for the court culture that elevated An Lushan. They blame her family, which had accumulated power under her influence. They blame her for everything that has gone wrong. Xuanzong, the emperor of China, the son of heaven, the ruler of the most powerful empire on earth, stands on a road in Shaanxi province and watches his soldiers kill the woman he loves. He cannot stop them. He is the most powerful man in the most powerful empire on earth, and he cannot stop them. Because what is happening on this road is the truth about what his dynasty has become. The center cannot hold. The emperor cannot command. The dynasty has been surviving on borrowed authority for years, and now the bill is due. He cannot stop them. The dynasty continues. The rebellion lasts until 763 AD, 8 years. The Tang suppresses it, but at costs it cannot absorb. First, Uyghur cavalry from the steppe are called in to fight on the dynasty's behalf. The Uyghurs accept. They also extract leverage over trade, over territory, over the dynasty's dignity that they exploit for generations afterward. Second, the regional military governors who contribute troops to suppress the rebellion are granted autonomy over their territories in exchange for their cooperation. The Tang court grants this because it has no other option. It never fully takes it back. The census tells the rest. China's registered population before the An Lushan rebellion, approximately 52 million households. After the rebellion, approximately 17 million. Not all of them are dead. Millions have fled. Millions are simply uncounted in the administrative collapse. The records don't exist anymore because the officials keeping them ran or were killed. But the demographic catastrophe is real. Du Fu, who lives through the rebellion and documents it in poem after poem, writes about empty villages, starving soldiers, and refugees on roads that lead nowhere. His poems are not metaphor. They are journalism filed from inside a civilization that is coming apart. The rebellion is suppressed. The dynasty survives for another 144 years. It never recovers. What does it mean that Li Bai and Du Fu exist in the same generation? Li Bai writes approximately 1,000 poems. Most of them are composed while traveling, many reportedly while drunk. His work captures the Tang at its height, the confidence of a civilization that believes the world flows toward it, the cosmopolitanism of a man who moves through the empire as though it belongs to him. Because, in the way that matters, it does. He writes about mountains, about wine, about the moon seen from every province of the empire. He writes as someone for whom the world is large and navigable and full of things worth noticing. Du Fu writes approximately 1,500 poems. He writes the same empire from the ground up, from refugee roads, from occupied cities, from the specific quality of hunger that comes from watching a civilization dismantle itself around you. He documents the An Lushan rebellion in real time. He writes about what it costs. Li Bai gives you the Tang at its height. Du Fu gives you the Tang in its fall. Between them, they give you the whole thing, the scale and the catastrophe, the confidence and the reckoning. Every Chinese dynasty that follows inherits them both. There is no way to understand Chinese literary culture without them. There is no way to understand what the Tang was without reading what it wrote about itself. The Tang produced Li Bai and Du Fu in the same generation. That does not happen by accident. In 907 AD, the last Tang emperor, ID, a teenager, a figure of ceremony rather than power, is forced to abdicate by a warlord named Zhu Wen. Zhu Wen has him murdered the following year. The Five Dynasties period begins. 53 years, 5 successive dynasties, none of them lasting more than 16 years, all of them products of the same structural damage. The military governors who were granted autonomy during the An Lushan suppression 150 years earlier never fully resubmitted to central control. They became regional powers. Their regional powers became warlord fiefdoms. The warlord fiefdoms became the 5 dynasties. The Tang dynasty doesn't end with a foreign conquest. It ends with its own structure collapsing inward, the center unable to hold what the periphery has decided to keep. The Song dynasty, which eventually reunifies China in 960 AD, draws specific lessons from this. It restricts the autonomy of military commanders. It de-emphasizes foreign influence. It builds Chinese cultural identity more narrowly and defensively. It is less cosmopolitan than the Tang, less militarily aggressive, more stable. The Song survives for 319 years, longer than the Tang's 289, without producing anything that equals Chang'an at its peak. What do you do with a dynasty that shows you exactly what openness can build and exactly what it can cost? The Song's answer is build walls, narrow the definition of what belongs, control the military, survive. It works, in the way that survival is a kind of success. But the Tang's question doesn't go away. Every Chinese dynasty that follows makes choices along this axis. How open, how cosmopolitan, how willing to absorb the world and be changed by it. None of them gets it entirely right. None of them forgets what the Tang built, or what it cost to build it. What the Tang leaves behind is not primarily political. The civil examination system, expanded by Wu Zetian, refined across the dynasty, institutionalized as the mechanism by which the Chinese state selects its officials, runs continuously until 1905. 1,200 years. The longest meritocratic selection system in human history. The idea that government office should be earned by demonstrated knowledge rather than inherited by birth. The Tang implements this at scale, and every Chinese dynasty that follows inherits it, and the civil service systems of Korea, Vietnam, and Japan are shaped by it. Li Bai's poems are still memorized. Du Fu's poems are still memorized. The Buddhist texts Xuanzang spent his life translating are still studied by scholars and practitioners of East Asian Buddhism. The art forms, Tang pottery, Tang sculpture, the specific aesthetic vocabulary that Tang artists develop, set the standards that later Chinese artists measure themselves against, and the name. The overseas Chinese communities around the world, in Southeast Asia, in the Americas, in Europe, wherever Chinese people settled and built neighborhoods and lives, call themselves Tangren, Tang people. They call their neighborhoods Tangrenjie, Tang people streets. In English, these are Chinatowns. In Chinese, they are streets of the Tang. The dynasty ended in 907 AD. The name it gave its people is still in active use, in streets named for it on 5 continents, in the mouths of people who have never been to Xi'an, who will never see the walls, who carry the name because their grandparents carried it, and their grandparents' grandparents carried it, all the way back to a city that held 1 million people in 700 AD, and believed, correctly for a time, that it was the center of everything. The Wild Goose Pagoda still stands in Xi'an, built in 652 AD to house the Buddhist text Xuanzang brought back from India, still standing. The Tang city walls, rebuilt during the Ming Dynasty, built on Tang foundations, still stand, 12 meters high, wide enough at the top to drive a vehicle. Underneath the modern city of Xi'an, underneath 1,300 years of construction and reconstruction, underneath the Ming walls and the Tang foundations and the layers of every dynasty that built on top of what the Tang planned, the grid. Chang'an was designed on a strict grid, a planned city laid out in rectangles, oriented to the cardinal directions, with streets that ran straight and wide between blocks of residential and commercial and governmental space. That grid still structures Xi'an. The streets above the Tang streets follow the Tang streets. The city of 13 million people moves through space the way it does because engineers in the 7th century decided how the space should be organized. The Tang planned the city in a grid. Xi'an still follows that grid. The dynasty ended, the plan remained.